Would you like to learn how to sew the fashion trends, like say Anthropologie? This scarf is absolutely darling, and when I saw it on Anthropologie's website, I thought I can copy that no problem. If you want to learn how to copy this scarf, then stick around. This is your tutorial. Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. Welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome. Today's video is all about playing copycat. Now what I mean by copycat is I was on Anthropologie's website a couple weeks ago and I saw this cute little scarf right here. The price tag was $58. I thought to myself, I surely can make one for way less than that, right? So I went to Joann Fabric to look for some faux fur, and they had a ton of faux fur to choose from. And luckily for me, when I went, it was 30% off of all of their faux fur. So yay. So I used my discount and I bought a yard of this fabric, which ended up being, it was regular $29. I ended up getting it for about $20 a yard. So it was a pretty good deal. And with this yard of fabric, I will be able to get 5 of these scarves out of it, which is an even better deal, which makes this scarf only $4 compared to $58. Now I will take you step by step and show you all of my tips and tricks on how to use faux fur. Enough talking already. Let's get busy. First things first, you need to have an understanding of your faux fur fabric first. Here I made a diagram of salvage edge to salvage edge right there. Those top and bottom squiggly lines, that is the cut edge that the person at the store where you got your faux fur fabric cut your fabric. Those slash marks that are running along the salvage edge right there, as you see me going downward, pretend like you're petting a cat and the fur is going in one direction. That's how your faux fur fabric is as well. You're probably wondering right now, why do you need to know that? Well, you need to know that because when you put a scarf around your neck, you need both sides to go in that downward petting motion. If you just cut one long piece of fabric, of the fur fabric out, and tried to make a scarf with it, and when you go to put it around your neck, one of the sides would be going in the opposite direction. That's why there's a seam in the middle in the back of our scarf. And if you look close enough on the Anthropologie photo, theirs is as well. If you follow this tip for faux fur fabric, then you will have both sides nice and soft and going in the right direction. Just for reference, the scarf that we are copying measures in the end 5.5 inches by 35 inches. So by my calculations, we need 2 separate pieces that are 18.25 inches long by 11.5 inches in width. In order to make sure that I have a straight squared off edge in the end, I went ahead and folded my fabric up half of the 11.5 inches. All the way down, I measured it perfectly and then clipped it. Then I turned it over and then I measured the other half of the 11.5 inches and made a mark with a pencil all the way down. And that is going to be my cut line when I go to cut. I'm using a pencil because in the end, nobody's going to see it anyways. It's a very light mark. Now, when we go to cut, we really don't want to use scissors because it's going to make a huge mess and we're going to have fur flying for days. The absolute best way to cut faux fur fabric is with a razor blade or an X-Acto knife. And it's going to be your best bet. We're going to get literally no pieces of fur at all, maybe 1 or 2 here and there, but that's it. Once you have your line all the way down, go ahead and take out all your clips and get your razor blade ready to go. When using this razor blade method, you really just want to take your time. You see how I have the razor at an angle almost, and I'm just barely penetrating the surface of that backing. That's exactly how you want to cut yours too. So I'm just going through, and you see how nice of a cut that literally gives you no fuzz afterwards. I love this method. I wish someone would have told me this method years ago. It would have saved me a lot of fur flying for sure. So you're just going to go ahead and keep on keeping on with this. It may take a little bit of time. So just methodically go down that line, and you see I'm kind of going in a backwards motion. I'm not going straight at the line. I'm coming from behind the line. I just find that was the easiest for me. Let me know down in the comments below, did you know about the razor blade method, or have you always just used a pair of scissors to cut your fur? If you're wondering, I don't typically use the salvage edge on fabric, but on this faux fur fabric, it went all the way to the edge, so I used it. When I purchased this fur, I purchased 1 yard of it, so I knew I had about 36 inches in length. So I went ahead and found the middle of that 36 inches and made my mark with the pencil, as you see me do here, and that is where I cut through with my razor blade to make 2 pieces. Because remember, we want to cut this area because we don't want the fur going in one big long direction. It needs to come down in one direction from the back of our neck in order for it to be nice and soft and pettable. Take your time with the razor blade. It's well worth it in the end. Trust me. Once that's all cut, you should now have 2 pieces of faux fur at 18¼ inches by 11½ inches each. Our next step is to hand sew those 2 pieces back together. But when you sew them together, we are going to make sure that from that seam, the petting goes nicely away from the seam, like as if we're petting a cat. And we're going to hand stitch that because when you go right away to the sewing machine, what happens is the fur wants to stretch, and we definitely don't want that. We want our seams to match up, and this is the best way really that I can find to work with faux fur so that it doesn't stretch, and that's just to hand baste it right there at the seam. And after I'm done hand sewing those right up next to each other, I'm just kind of butting them up next to each other. Then I'm going to take some tape. I took some of that washi tape that I had, and I place it down the middle of the seam, and then I'm going to go ahead and with my sewing machine zigzag down that piece of tape. Your basting job doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, my word, look at mine. Mine looks horrible. I hate hand sewing, and you can probably tell within my work that I don't get much practice at it. You'll see here in a minute after I'm done hand sewing, I do show you a shot of the washi tape actually on that backing of the fur. And what I don't show you though is the actual sewing of the zigzag on my sewing machine, so I'm sorry about that. But I did go ahead and sew right down that washi tape, the zigzag, and then after I was done, I went ahead and pulled the tape up off on the sides, and that took any excess tape off of there. Now we need to figure out where the slit's going to go. So go ahead and fold right sides together, your scarf, and then from that seam down one side, you're going to go 9¼ inches from the middle of that seam, and that's going to be where your slit starts. You're going to find the middle, counting your seam allowance, where you're going to sew that together as well, so don't forget about that. And you're going to make a 3-inch slit, and go ahead and mark it all with your pencil so you know where you're going to cut into. Right now we're only marking one side for the slit. I'll show you how we do the other side here in a second. Before we mark the other side, I want you to go ahead and take your razor blade and cut through that 3-inch slit first. Remember to be careful, don't go too far, you don't want to make it too big. Now we're going to grab 2 straight pins and we're going to mark through to the other side so that we know where the slit goes on the other side. Take one of those pins at the very end of one of the slits and poke it through, and then do the same on the other end. Go ahead and flip it over just like you see me do. Make the 3-inch mark from pin to pin, and then you're going to go ahead and use your razor blade and cut through to that 3 inches. Now that's just the way that I marked it. I found it was really easy to mark it like that. If you guys have a better option for marking, go ahead and leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. So we'll deal with those slits later, but right now what we're going to do is a little bit more hand sewing. I know, nobody likes to hand sew. I mean, at least I don't. So what we're going to do is go ahead and base stitch around the entire scarf. Not the folded edge though, just the part that's open. Because let me tell you, I first did it on my sewing machine without basting it, and it was a hot mess. It stretched terribly, so the basting is a must. So go ahead and just break out that needle and thread and just bite the bullet and just do it. Trust me, you will have a much better looking scarf in the end. I cut a lot of my hand sewing out of this video because it was just too boring. So I'm sorry if you all like to watch that, but it was too long and too boring. So after you go ahead and hand baste the entire scarf, the next thing you're going to do is take it to your sewing machine and you're going to sew a straight stitch around the entire scarf except the folded side. This is what you should have after you've done your straight stitch all around. Next, go ahead and put your hand in one of those slits all the way to the bottom there and pull the scarf right side out. Gently with your fingers, go ahead and push out the corners. Now would be a good time, if you do have a fine-tooth comb, to go ahead and comb out the seam areas and just make sure everything is nice and smooth on your scarf. You have to look close on the Anthropologie photo to really see this one. But the next step on each of those ends, what you're going to do is about an inch in just at the bottom and about 3 inches up from the bottom. You're going to encase the corner sewing with a straight stitch, the front and the back together, but just toward the bottom area, and that's it. Now the next thing you're going to do is break out that needle and thread again and sew up that slit, just connecting the two sides together. And then what you're going to do is take it to your sewing machine and do a straight stitch right along the edge, about 1/4 of an inch along the edge, right around that slit, just to hold everything nice and neat together. After the hand sewing and after you've taken it through your sewing machine and reinforced that slit area, your scarf is all done, my friend, and it is cute. Oh my word. Go ahead and just slide the one end through the slit there, and you have a beautiful on-trend scarf for fall and winter of 2020. And honestly, it only took about an hour or so. But in the end, you have this most darling creation that you made yourself. And for $4, I'd do it again and again and again. I think I will for Christmas. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.